Hello, everyone. This is Janine and Jean from Pranalink.com, and we are here with Marina Mataraga. Did I pronounce that right, Marina?
Mataranga, yeah.
Mataraga. Marina is a guest blogger for us at Pranalink.com. And recently, she and I were just catching up and talking about how much we enjoyed the June 24th webinar put on by Lisa Wilder, which was a topic about healing from burnout. And one of the things in that webinar was the emotional freedom technique, known as EFT. And Marina was telling me why she thought EFT works. And I thought it was very interesting discussion and something that would be a really good educational video for us to pull together for our audience. So thank you, Marina, for volunteering to go over this with us. And we're going to do kind of a question and answer format. So my first question, Marina, is what do you think lies behind EFT and why is it so effective?
So traditional Chinese medicine is what lies behind EFT, and that teaches all about the meridians, and it's the foundation for acupuncture, acupressure, EFT, and massage that they do under the Chinese medicine. And it's based on an understanding of our energy body and how it flows. So what you see here, Qigong is the name for Chinese medicine, and it's also the name for a number of forms that in China through the centuries they did as exercises. So form is body postures, and that carries the name Qigong. And today mostly we know Qigong as that set of exercise postures, but it's also the name for Chinese medicine. And the symbol for it is a pot of rice that is steaming. So you show the different elements, the earth element and the heat and the air and the water all together and produce the cooked rice. So Qigong, really what it does in all of what I mentioned, including martial arts, that it is a foundation for Tai Chi, etc. What it does is it moves earth energy and heaven energy through our body. And main terms to understand about this is the idea of yin being the feminine and yang being masculine energy. So they move in opposite directions, and it's important to understand that. The three dantian, which is our inner balance units, and they are the equivalent of the even numbered chakras in Indian tradition. So the lower dantian is the second chakra, the middle is the fourth, and the upper is the sixth. And the theory in Chinese medicine is that when you're young, your center of balance is in the second chakra, the lower dantian. And when you are in middle age, is in your heart area, the fourth chakra, middle dantian. And when you age, you become very thought-driven and memory-driven and worry-driven, and all of that rises up to the sixth chakra. And that's why a lot of what Tai Chi and Qigong teach is how to push that center of balance back down to the lower dantian, so you don't fall as much, right? Because if you're top heavy, as you get older, you fall a lot. And the idea also is that as there is imbalances that happen in the upper dantian and you cleanse them, they move as energy into the lower dantian. This is part of the theory of Chinese martial arts. And you do in martial arts all that movement through your mind. It's the mind that drives the chi, and chi is the name they use for energy. So qigong means energy, and gong is work, how energy works. Okay, the other thing to understand is that they have 14 major meridians. There is a ton of others, but mostly those 14 are taught. And the 7 chakras, of course, this is more of a parallel thing. I believe ancient traditions existed worldwide, so you find a lot of overlap between cultures. So, for example, in the Greco-Roman world, the chakras were understood to combine with our endocrine system. And if you look at the root of the word endocrine, it means inner lily in Greek. So that's the equivalent of a lotus flower in India. So if you go and study all these things open-minded, you realize that they're not against one another. They are parallel, very parallel.
Can you better define yin and yang?
Absolutely. So I define it mostly through functions or features. It takes a while to recognize something as yin or something as yang. But I find that these adjectives help me. And over the years, every day, if I suffer from something, I try to say, okay, is this a yin issue or is it a yang issue? So to give you a horrible example, if you have diarrhea, that's a yin issue. And if you have constipation, it's a yang issue. And in Chinese medicine, it's important to understand that because balancing is all you do. So you balance the yin with yang and the yang with yin. Now they also balance the 4 elements, and I'm not getting into that at all today. But balance is the end goal. So now the top that I have in red, I think the yin is ascending. It's earth energy coming up through the body. A lot of people teach the opposite, and I'll tell you why later on. And yang is descending. It's sky energy coming through the body. Yin is soft, yang is hard, yin is smooth, yang is rough. Yin is velvety, yang is shiny. Yin is, if you think of the staff of Mercury, where you have a staff in the center rising perpendicular, and then you have the 2 snakes going around. The serpentine movement belongs to yin, and the upright belongs to yang. Cool is yin, hot is yang. And in astrology, you always compare Saturn and Jupiter. So contracting, Saturn is yin. Expanding, Jupiter is yang. In the I Ching, it's very clear that yin is defined as receptive and yang is defined as creative. The I Ching is the book of changes of the Chinese, which is a wonderful way of gaining wisdom because it relates always back to your character and actions. Yin is introvert, so all esoteric arts are yin, and yang is extrovert, so Western medicine is yang. Yin is inhalation, yang is exhalation. In ancient Greece, yin is wisdom, Sophia is feminine, and yang is logos, which is masculine. So you can think of Sophia is our fifth chakra, wisdom, and Logos is our third chakra, understanding of experience. And in the elements, earth and water are yin, air and fire are yang. And that carries into astrology as well in multiple systems.
Very interesting. Can you also describe meridians more?
Yes, absolutely. So what are the meridians? They are channels through which the energy of the universe animates our life body. So a good parallel, because people say, well, is it the nervous system that carries the meridians? No, the meridians are invisible. They can be felt only as different types of energy or different types of holes or blockages or bumps on your body, but they also go deep inside the body. So a very good analogy is if you think of the nervous system as plugged in energy that moves electricity from the brain to the body. The meridians are a wireless network, and they really move cosmic energy from the sky and the earth through the body. But they operate in a very similar way. They pass energy through. So, and this energy, it goes as it goes through all the meridians, but there is always a meridian that is in focus for about 2 hours of the day. And Chinese medicine relies on that, especially for diagnosis. So they will, if you go to a Chinese doctor, they will ask you during what time does this symptom occur the most, right? So, and that 2 hour times 12 is 24. And I'll tell you why 12 instead of 14. There is 14 meridians total, but the clock is around the 12 meridians. And the idea is that health is the free flow, uninterrupted flow, and disease comes when you get blockages or skips or somehow the channels are not flowing. And the objective with acupuncture, acupressure, tapping is to really release those blockages and re-engage your energy to flow through. Now, some of that is available at the skin level on the surface, but some of it you can only reach through acupuncture because the points are a lot deeper. So I became a believer of the system when I was suffering from fibromyalgia and I had pain all over the body. And then one day I was waiting for an airplane or something, and I began massaging my arm. And I began massaging wherever it was that I was hurting. And I released the entire issue doing that. And I thought, wow. And then I bought a book on massage, acupressure massage, and I'm not certified in any of this. It's just sheer interest to understand how it works and use whatever resources I can reach into. And now with the internet, you can reach into a lot.
Yeah. Where do blockages occur?
So blockages can occur anywhere where you move from one acupoint to another. But I guess the most serious ones are when a channel ends and it needs to start the next channel. That is the most captivating point for a blockage to occur. But they could occur anywhere. And the idea is if you, let's say you go down your arm and you look for what point hurts, massage that point. You have a blockage there if it hurts. And massage means, go with your thumb circular on it till it goes. I grew up in Greece, and it was like, if you hurt, don't touch it. It's the opposite. Hurt, push it out. And you need to push it out, starting with the fingertips and then move up. And the same with your legs. You start at your feet and you move up. Otherwise, you're just piling up blockage on its way out. Meridians, they flow the masculine down from the sky, and it's always the same pattern, right? If you think of your arms upright, you need to have your arms raised to think of this as descending. So the yang will come in through the fingertips, come down the arm, go up to the head, and then switch to the next yang channel that goes down from the head through the body and out the leg. And the yin does the opposite. If you start at the earth, they come up the foot, through the leg, through the body, to the heart. And then they switch to the next yin channel, which goes up a little bit up the body and out your arm. So if you think about that for a minute, the changes that happen in the head are yang to yang. And that's why we think of the head as a very masculine thinking engine. And the transitions that happen in the heart are yin to yin. And it's no wonder we think of the heart as a feminine, receptive, loving organ. So what creates the blockages to begin with? It's just negative thinking. So if you have stress or worry or anger, all of that creates blockages. Now, there is a difference between yang blockages, which is anger and overthinking, and yin blockages, which is worry, grief, fear. And the ones block at your head level, the others block at your heart level.
Can you give some examples of meridians?
So I will give you the list, and we can concentrate on some more than others. So, and you need to be aware that the notation varies from author to author. So in some cases, I've tried to show a couple of notations. So whatever is green here is yin, and whatever is red is yang. So I'll go through them in sequence. You start with the lung, you move to the large intestine, stomach, spleen, heart, small intestine, urinary bladder, which many just call bladder, kidney, and then the pericardium, the triple warmer, the gallbladder, which many call gall, and liver. These are the 12 main ones. And then there is two more, and they think of them as craniosacral meridians. So they start from whatever our saddle point is, and the yin one comes up the front, and the yang one comes up the back. The back is called the governing channel because it goes up our spine, and our spine is our governing organ, if you want, both for uprightness and morality. And then the yin one comes down the front, and that is the conceptual vessel, which is conceptual in terms of bringing things together as concepts, but also in terms of conceiving life. So these two are used to create a macrocosmic orbit by healers. And the way to do that is really press, so you can combine them at the saddle point. So you kind of press there, and also put your tongue on your upper jaw. touch the top of the mouth with your tongue. And the reason is that the governing channel comes down to the top of the mouth, and then the conceptual channel begins at the bottom of the mouth. And by lifting the tongue up, you combine them. And then if you do Reiki or any of these healings, you need to be rotating them so the conceptual comes up and, I'm sorry, the governing comes up and the conceptual moves down. And so this is called the microcosmic orbit, and it's very important to do this rotation because these two channels connect to all the other channels. And that way, when somebody does healing, whether it is through the hands or other method, they empower the energy to go through their body into the person they're working on.
Interesting. Do the meridians control the organ that they're named after?
Not really. I mean, I think you will get a yes and no answer from an acupuncturist. There is points that relate to that organ, and there's points that do not. I think in as the energy flows, though, it feeds that organ.
Okay.
So here, let me show you this. You have all the yin ones relate to organs, all the yang ones relate to bowels. Bowels meaning a place where you pass or store things, right? And then the functional vessels, we talked about the governing vessel and conceptual. The reason I have Du and RN is Du is the name in Chinese and Ren. So some people use the Chinese abbreviation. So it's very hard to answer what is the pericardium and what is the triple warmer. I feel the pericardium around the heart. So it's almost like before my heart ever hurts, I will feel it in the pericardium area, and it kind of goes around the heart. Some people, I think, relate it to the thyroid. The triple warmer, I think of as the 3 dantian, that it affects those second, fourth, and sixth chakras. But different people will give you different explanations. I don't know how to resolve that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the 24-hour clock?
Yes. So, and this will give you an idea of how they relate to the organs. So let's say starting at 4 a.m., you are at the peak of the lung meridian. And very often you will wake up and you will need to blow your nose, or you will feel your sinuses messed up. It's a breathing time, or whenever the lung meridian activates is when you need to cleanse out your breathing passages. So you often wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock feeling that need. 6 a.m. is the peak of the large intestine, and that's when you have usually a bowel movement between 6 and 7 as you wake up. Then next at 8 a.m. it's breakfast time, so you need to fill your stomach, and on that way. I mean, heart attacks mostly happen at noon. Why? Because that's the time that meridian is clearing out. So it's it's not all that easy to work with that clock, but when you become a practitioner in Chinese medicine, you really depend on it.
How does the qi travel through this clock?
Uh, to me, that was the most amazing discovery. And it's funny that I came across it and I tried to go back to the people who had taught me enough to get to that point. Meaning they are traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, and they were teaching qigong classes and acupressure classes. And that's how I got to this point. And I found this amazing, but I I think acupuncturists are trained in detail, so they really truly memorize what different points. They quickly press something and say, "Are you relieved there?" And they're spot on. But that's more of a ground up learning of all the detail and how it hangs together. But if you look at the macro of this phenomenon, I found it very interesting because I found that there is a wave pattern. So think of it as three major waves that we go through in a day. And they're all very similar in the sense that, let's say, you start them at the heart with the lung meridian, the same way as the clock, right? So if you start at the heart, and I don't know, can you see my arrow here?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you start at the heart and you go up the lung meridian through the fingers, and then you switch over to the large intestine, and that goes up to the head, where it switches over to the stomach, goes out the foot, down the leg, out the foot, and comes up the foot again, same foot, right? You're not changing person here. I just had to open it up to show it conceptually. You go up the leg as the spleen meridian to the head. I'm sorry, to the heart, where you switch over to the heart meridian and you go up the arm. You come out a different finger into the small intestine, which is yang. It goes up to the head, and there it switches over to the urinary bladder, and it goes down the body, through the leg, down the foot, and up as a yin meridian, the kidney, to the heart, then switches to the pericardium, goes out the fingers, comes back in as the triple warmer, which is yang, goes to the head, switches over to the gallbladder, goes out the leg, and comes up as the yin liver, and then you start all over again. Was that visible?
Yes. And so do we know the transition points?
Yeah, I have them marked here. So, and this was the key to my study of why the tapping works, was marking where do we tap and where do we have transition points. So obviously, I mean, you have 3 transition points in the head, which is these here: long intestine 20 to stomach 1, small intestine 18 to urinary bladder 1, triple warmer 23 to gallbladder 1. And then you have 3 at the heart level, which is liver 14 to lung 1, spleen 21 to heart 1, kidney 27 to pericardium 1. And at the heart, only one of the points is reachable from the outside, and that's what I call the outer, and the other one is deeper in the body. It's not reachable. So when you think of the transitions, they could be an inch apart, right? They're not right on top of each other. There is a leap that happens from one point to the next, just as there is a leap that happens between one acupuncture point to the next on a channel, right? Now, you also have the fingertip ones and the foot ones, and I can show you these. I can show you these. It's easier to look at the picture. So the end of your lung meridian is on the thumb, and it moves to the large intestine on the index finger. And then the next pair is pericardium and triple warmer. And then the next pair is heart to small intestine. There is two other points to remember about the heart, and that is their gates. So there is a gate of life, the PC8, and that's for healers, it's an important point to massage a little bit before they practice, because that's where their energy comes out to help a patient. And then there's a spirit gate, the H7. And the reason I show this is because when you do tapping, you have the option to also hit that gate. And gates are always important to keep open. So you want to know where they are and massage them to open them. I can show you the equivalent on the feet. Sorry, this picture is not pretty. But, again, here you have the urinary bladder skipping to the kidney, and that's a gate right there. It's under your foot, right, where you have a cavity, so to speak, in that area. But all the other transitions happen at the toe level. It's not as, the foot is not as tidy as the hand. I don't know why. It kind of, you can see this picture. It's not from one toe to the next. It's more elaborate. And tapping doesn't deal at all with these transitions. I would say these transitions move yang to yin. And to me, that's what explains why we do so many walks for cancer, for different causes, because in that walking, you are converting yang to yin. So, and that's why walking is so important. If you have a lot of yang in you, you need to balance it out to yin. So, wait,
can you go a little bit deeper into the transition points that relate to EFT?
Yeah, the ones that relate to EFT are the head region and the heart region. And again, these pictures are funny, but if you look at when you do the tapping at the top of the head, definitely you need to tap the governing channel 20, which is where all yang channels meet. And that is at the top of the head, but you can tap further back to where the babies have a soft spot, and then further front, and you're just the governing channel getting some liberation of blockages is very important, and a big area where that happens is the top of the head. Then you can see where you tap on the, I thought I had the brows. I don't have the brows on this picture. But the temples and under the eyes, and then the under the nose and on the chin. So 3 of these are yang to yang transitions. You see where the triple warmer becomes gallbladder on the temples, and the small intestines moves to urinary bladder under the eyes, and the large intestine moves to the stomach, and that would be under the nose, but also a little bit on the side of the nostrils right here. Yeah. And then you're addressing also the beginning point, the end point of the governing channel and the end point of the conceptual channel as you tap there. The heart region ones, think of this, I drew it as the heart. I didn't know how else to draw it, but think of it as, you know, under the collarbone, all the way to under your armpits. That's where the H1 is right under the armpit, and then the SB21 is a little lower. So they're kind of in a row in your chest area, and you impact them as you do the breastbone tapping and the under the armpit tapping.
Okay. What are the acupoints being tapped on?
So the other thing to consider is the fingertips, right? Because you're using anywhere between 3 and 5 fingers when you do the tapping. So I mark here what channel those are. These are either the ends or the beginnings of channels, right? On the fingertips. But then when you go into what is it that each area taps, these are the tapping areas. And yeah, you see here, the reason I didn't have the over and between the brows is it's not a channel switch. It's just an important point.
Okay. Yeah, those look like all of the points that Lisa went over in her EFT.
Yeah.
Can we look at each of these in more detail so that we know what's really
yeah, we can, but it should give you more of, don't use that as targeted knowledge, right? Because I think the reason her routine works is the entire thing and that you repeat it 4 times. So it's not like you could go to one of them and do the tapping there and because it cures the thing you want to cure, right? Don't target it that way. Do the whole complex, because one thing influences another. I think that the sequence probably matters as well. But if you I have that knowledge here and I can go over it, but the way I have it is I looked it up on Google, right? I looked up, once I realized what are we tapping, I looked up the benefits. So I'm repeating whatever I found in Google. And what that should do is give you an idea of the extent of the influence, right? So if you want to know, does the routine address sleep patterns? Yeah, because when you tap the triple warmer transition to the gallbladder, you're affecting sleep patterns, right? Ability to manage stress, fight or flight response, all of that happens up here. Did I skip one? Yeah, the over and between the brows and karate. Let's start with the karate hand. The karate means loose fist in Chinese or Japanese. I don't know which of the two, but the name has stayed. And the idea is that when you tap, you need to have a karate hand. Have your hand like a little circle like that, a loose fist. And you start in the place where karate hits the brick, right? You start by tapping that portion of the hand. And that's what we call karate hand here. And this is primarily the small intestine, points 3 to 4. But also, if you go all the way down to where your hand meets your wrist, that's an H7 point. So I'm sure some people will hit that, some people will not, depending how you do the tapping. But usually if you go wider, it's better because you're tapping more areas. So this has a lot to do with the head and the eyes and even shoulder and arm and hands and finger and wrist problems for the small intestine. So you see, it doesn't affect the small intestine, right? The acupoints could be affecting anything in the body, right? And then H7 helps nourishing the blood and calming down internal fire, and it's a yin point, so it calms down fire. So you see the range. Now, this range is totally true for acupuncture, partially true for acupressure, because you cannot reach as far with acupressure, and partially true for tapping, because all you're doing is surface tapping, right? So that's why I'm saying take them with a grain of salt. So over the brows, I would say also between the brows, because you want to hit this yin tang point, which is the third eye. So and you know, go a little bit up and down. Don't just do always the same point. Move your hands a little bit, just as you would when you do the head, and that guarantees you will tap more. So obviously the third eye tapping brings you into presence and increases intuition and access to the spirit. The rest of the over the brows is the gallbladder 14 point. And obviously we're not going to cure facial paralysis here, right? But it does help the eyes shape better and focus better. And if you have vertigo or forehead pain, that is helped as well. Temples by the eyes, triple Warner to gallbladder, and Tai Yang point, which is a little further back. These are all yang. And we talked about the ability to affect the sleep and help your immune system. And again, calms the fire of flight or fight, and increases blood flow to the eyes and reduces headaches that occur on one side of the head with dizziness. Under the eyes, and again, this is move it a little bit so you catch like SI to UB. You need to go a little bit up on the side again. And that's where small intestine travels to urinary bladder. And the points themselves, they treat upper jaw toothache or facial spasms, facial pain, redness, itching, eyelid twitching issues, excessive lacrimation, and grimaces, if you have involuntary grimaces. Under the nose is where we transfer from large intestine to stomach. Now, we don't press on stomach 1 because that's almost in the eye under the pupil. So you press on 2 as you do the tapping. I'm sorry. Under the nose, the S2 is right here. S1 would have been right under the eyes. So we're not tapping there, right? But if you tap under the nose and S2, you're affecting that transition to happen. And that, if you have, this is the one that you can do by itself if you have sinus issues. So if you have a running nose or cold, tapping here, but also the sides of the nose, right, makes a big difference. And then the governing channel, the end of it is also there, and that is in the center, right? And it restores focus and calms the mind. So on the chin, this is major intersection. Again, we have the conceptual channel that begins here. But again, that will be enhanced if your tongue touches the top of your mouth while you do this, like this. And the conceptual channel 24 is used to treat facial paralysis. Again, that would be true for acupuncture, not for the tapping. Dental pain, speech issues, and dry mouth. So again, the degree to which you can make all of these things happen obviously differs between tapping and acupuncture itself. So the descriptions I put here come from acupuncture instructions. So then now below the collarbone, this is the K27, which is almost in the center next to the breastbone to PC1. And that helps throat, chest, breathing, and releases endorphins. And then the liver to lung, which is a little further out. So again, travel a bit, right? Not a lot further out, but and that helps regulate to the lung issues and moves qi down. And then the ST13 is there as well, and that helps with asthma, cough, wheezing. So you see, even though that's a stomach point, you are tapping it in the chest area, and you're dealing with chest issues. And, this inability to turn head and releasing neck pain, I noticed that very strongly when I did the Lisa's routine for the first time. I was like, wow, this really works. Okay, and then we don't forget under the armpit, and I do that with my palm or the fingertips, I don't know. But this is another transition, right? Where you tap is the splint 21, and the heart one is way inside, exactly under the armpit. So you're affecting that transition point, and that helps with aching and weakness on the limbs, right? And by limbs, we mean arms, but also legs, I would think here. And then with asthma and chest pain. And then the Jiquan, which is the beginning of the heart meridian, calms the mind and promotes blood flow, energizes, and again, improves lung function, but also urinary function, because I guess it reduces uric acid. So that would be very good.
Yeah.
What?
Jean told me I need to tap that a lot because I get gout. So
Yeah, and I don't know that it means to tap a lot, but it really make it, it's part of the routine, right?
Yeah,
I wouldn't,
right,
I
exactly.
wouldn't emphasize one point over another, other than the nose I told you for running nose. I
Yeah.
would just do the whole routine.
That
And
was a
then,
good reminder. Thank you.
because it's, again, you don't want to move the blockage somewhere else, right? That's
Yeah.
why you need
Yeah.
to do the whole routine. And then you end with the top of the head. Why? Because these are all the yang points. And you know, explore on your head. Don't just do one point. Definitely do the top, which is the Bahui governing 20. And that's where it's the meeting of 100 pathways, they call it in Chinese. And that's where all the yang meridians meet. And then that point helps headache, dizziness, eye pain, excess yang. And excess yang will affect the liver faster than anything else. So if you have hurting liver or liver fire, it helps. If you go further front, you have GV21, and that's for headaches, migraines, blurry vision, and swelling in the face, maybe even movement issues, and for people recovering from stroke. And I will tell you, when I had my husband do this technique, he had a stroke back in December, and he had all these daily constant headaches from that stroke. And we did the routine because, I don't know, he had a bad headache or whatever at that moment, but the constant headache stopped. I cannot have him do it again. It's like voodoo to him, right? But we did it because he was in so much pain. And since that day, he doesn't have the constant headaches anymore.
It's
So
wonderful.
it does work. And then as you go further back and further front, you can affect even more areas like nasal issues or headaches and vertigo.
When I learned EFT a lot, they always there's things that you say, you know, what the problem is, and then something to release it. How does that correlate? You know, is that the emotional part of it, or is that the, you know, I always sometimes look at things as the physical, mental, emotional things, you know. So why sometimes the mantras you could say with it?
So I don't know why they called it emotional freedom, but if you think what I said earlier about where all the channels meet, right? And that's the same place where we get blockages from thoughts or emotions. So your thinking creates yang blockages, and your emotions create yin blockages. So in that sense, it makes sense they call it that, because most of what it treats is the head region and the heart region, to release whatever you put there through negative thinking, and whatever you put there through an emotion of fear. So I don't work with mantras myself. I have worked out a system, a balancing system that is also influenced by the Judeo-Christian tradition, and I call it the four baptisms. And it's really in all its simplicity is that if you feel intense pride and superiority over another, you need to switch that very quickly to reverence, or it will become a problem. If you feel grief and victimization and all of this kind of feeling, you need to shift them to thankfulness so they don't become a problem. If you feel fear, you need to switch that to faith in yourself, faith in your uprightness, faith in your inner divinity. And if you feel anger, you need to switch it to forgiveness. And these are the 4 baptisms. The first one is the fire baptism that I talked about, where you turn your superiority into reverence and service, right? The second one is the earth baptism, where you change your grief to thanksgiving. And if you think about it, the Christian Mass enacts that, right? Because you take your grief for the passion of Christ, and what do? You have the Eucharist, which means thankfulness, thanksgiving. Eucharist in Greek means thanksgiving. So you change the grief to thanksgiving for the sacrifice of Christ. Don't keep it as grief because it pulls you down, right? And then the water baptism is where you take fear and turn it to self-confidence and faith. How does that relate to the water baptism? What happens when you're baptized? You're given a first name. So you're pulled into your individual being away from your family and race and whatever blood relates you to. You're pulled into your atomic I am, which is your spirit essence, not your blood essence, right? Through the first name, through giving the first name. And that, if you use that in uprightness, you increase your I am essence, and you move into your faith, not of a God out there that will come help you, or Jesus or anything, faith in your own divinity, in your I am, whatever I am is now within you. And I always wondered, why water? Why water? And then when I watch my plants now in the heat, how they droop over from the heat, and you give them water, and what do? They stand upright. It's like the water makes them stand, which is strange, right? But there is a correlation. And then the last one I talked about, where you move anger to forgiveness, is the air baptism. And that's the letting go of the heart wall. Because every time you have emotions, you're building little bricks in your heart area. I mean, we can call them blockages in Qigong, but they build a brick wall which keeps you from entering the other realm in peace. Because when you enter the other realm and you have all this brick wall, what you see in it is the negatives of all the emotions you have stored there, which can be monstrously scary. And that's why you need to open that heart wall in order to be able to pass through the heart. So, but that's a topic for another day, right?
That sounds wonderful. We'll have to schedule a time for us to go into that in more detail, because it was very, very fascinating. Thank you so much for doing this with us, Marina. And we're going to post your PowerPoint in the blog section of Pranalink, so that people can maybe start commenting and we can get a dialogue going on this, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's all right. Just make sure you post the last one I sent with the questions, because I added some color and maybe added a slide where you go through all the different meridians to show the connections.
Okay, fantastic. And also for all of you looking at our video, we will post Lisa Wilder's webinar from June 24th that kind of spurred this discussion so that you can participate in that as well. And Lisa has also agreed to doing another free webinar on September 30th. We'll post a link to where you can register for that. And she also, Lisa Wilder, also does one-on-one sessions, and we will post a link so you can have one-on-one sessions with Lisa. And again, Marina, thank you so much. We really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.